There are moments in life that logic simply cannot explain. Moments when two people lock eyes and it feels like an echo from another lifetime, just whispered through the air. Have you ever walked into a room and someone looked at you as if they knew your story, not the surface, not your job, not your name, but the hidden you, the parts you don't even show to yourself? If you are a Scorpio, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because this doesn't just happen once, it happens often. Too often for it to be called coincidence. Too precise to be random. Someone senses something in you before you even speak. They don't know your secrets, but they can feel the depth of them. They don't know your past, but something in their soul feels warned, or called, or humbled. This is not about charisma. It's not about physical attraction. It's about energy, ancient, deep, restless. It's about the spiritual presence of Scorpio, the sign that carries the energy of death, rebirth, and truth, all wrapped in silence. And when someone's soul is ready, they recognize you. They don't know why. They just do. They lean in without knowing the danger. They soften without understanding the reason. They feel seen and terrified all at once. Because Scorpio doesn't just walk into people's lives, Scorpio awakens something in them. In this video, we'll go deep into the 10 undeniable signs that someone's soul has recognized the power inside you instantly. These signs are not always comfortable. Some are subtle, some are raw, but all of them are real. Because when a Scorpio's presence enters the room, the soul reacts before the mind catches up. And once they've seen you, truly seen you, nothing ever feels the same again. Let's begin. Sign 1, they can't stop looking at you, but it's not attraction. It's recognition. They stare, not like someone who's flirting, not like someone who's curious, but like someone who just remembered something. They don't even know they had forgotten. It begins with a glance, but it lingers. Their eyes follow you through the room, and when you lock eyes with them, they look away, quickly, nervously, as if caught in something sacred. This is not about physical beauty. It's not about charm or charisma. Scorpio energy does not seek attention, it commands it. And the soul, the true soul of another person, doesn't need permission to respond. It reacts instinctively to something older than words, to a vibration that feels ancient, to a presence that says, I see through you and I dare you to see through me. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, a woman, a Scorpio, walked into a coffee shop in New Orleans. She wasn't dressed to impress, she didn't say a word, but a man sitting across the room looked up the moment she entered. He stared, not rudely, but with a kind of shock. Later, he would say, it wasn't her face that caught me, it was something else. Like I had seen her eyes in a dream I'd forgotten, and in that moment it was like I remembered something, but I couldn't place it. That man didn't fall in love with her. He didn't even speak to her that day, but he told his friends for weeks after, there was something about her. I can't explain it. It wasn't human, it was spiritual. That's the mark of a soul that's recognized Scorpio not with logic, but with reverence. You see, the reason they stare at you is because something in them suddenly feels seen. And when you're a Scorpio, your presence acts like a mirror, not for the ego, but for the soul. Some will be drawn in, some will run, but none will forget. Because that stare isn't about attraction, it's about remembrance. Their soul remembers your vibration from a life, a moment, a wound, or a promise never fulfilled. You don't need to say anything. They'll feel it. And once they've felt it, they'll never quite be the same. Life lesson, don't dim your presence just because people stare. You were never meant to blend in. Scorpio energy wasn't made for comfort, it was made for awakening. And some souls were always meant to remember you the moment you appeared. Sign 2, they confess things to you. They've never said out loud, even to themselves. They start talking, but not about the weather, not about the game on Sunday or the traffic that morning. No. With you, it's different. They begin telling you things they've never told anyone else. stories from childhood, wounds they never spoke of, secrets they buried so deep they almost forgot they existed. And they say things like, "I don't know why I'm telling you this. I've never said this out loud before. You probably think I'm crazy, but you don't think they're crazy. You know exactly what's happening." Because their soul, not their mind, feels safe with you. It senses that you're not here to judge. You're here to witness. Let me tell you a real story. A Scorpio man once told me he was sitting on a park bench just reading. A woman, a stranger, sat beside him. After a few minutes of silence, she began to cry. Not softly, not dramatically, but like something inside her cracked open. She didn't know him. He didn't even look at her. And yet, she spoke. She spoke of a miscarriage, a husband who left, a shame she carried for years. And she said, "I've never told anyone this, not even my sister, but something told me you'd understand." That is not psychology. That is soul recognition. Scorpio energy is deep water, still on the surface but endless beneath. And when someone's soul feels that depth, it wants to be submerged in it, to unburden itself, to be seen not by the eyes, but by the spiritual mirror Scorpio always holds. What they feel isn't comfort, it's truth. And truth, as Scorpio knows all too well, is rarely painless, but it is always sacred. Most people spend their lives talking around their pain, avoiding it, masking it. But with Scorpio, there is no mask strong enough. The soul simply surrenders. It's as if your energy whispers to them, "I already know. You don't have to pretend anymore." And so they speak, not to be understood, but to be free. Out. Life lesson: never underestimate the weight you carry simply by being present. You don't need to have all the answers. Sometimes your only job is to listen. Because for many people, you are the first place their soul has ever felt safe enough to tell the truth. And in that silence, you've already healed something they didn't even know was broken. Sign 3, they feel intimidated by you, but they're drawn in anyway. They won't admit it out loud, but something about you makes them hesitate. Not because you're loud, not because you're demanding. In fact, it's usually the opposite. You're calm, you're composed, you're still. But that stillness doesn't soothe them, it unnerves them. Because you're not just quiet, you're observing. You're watching everything and missing nothing. And their soul feels it. When someone's soul recognizes the power of Scorpio, it often doesn't know whether to run or kneel. It's the strangest feeling, being magnetized by someone and frightened by what they might awaken in you. They don't understand why they filter their words around you, why they laugh a little too loudly, why they avoid holding your gaze for more than a second or two. It's because something in them is saying, "Be careful, this one sees you, this one won't fall for your charm, this one wants your truth." And truth scares people more than any monster ever could. Boom. Let me tell you something ancient, something astrologers in the mystery schools knew thousands of years ago. Scorpio doesn't intimidate because they try. They intimidate because they've walked through pain most people still run from. They've stared into darkness and found their name carved on the wall. They've died and come back emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, over and over again. So when you enter a space, Scorpio, your energy speaks. "I've survived things you've never dared to face." And their soul hears that whether their conscious mind wants to or not. And here's the paradox. Even as they feel small in your presence, even as they feel exposed and vulnerable, they keep coming closer. Because the soul doesn't want comfort, it wants transformation. And your energy doesn't just promise change, it demands it. That's why they're intimidated, but that's also why they'll return. Again and again and again. Life lesson: your energy will always trigger two kinds of people. Those who are ready to evolve and those who are terrified of what evolution requires. Don't shrink just to ease someone else's fear. Your stillness is powerful. Your presence is sacred. And if someone trembles in front of you, it's not because you're too much. It's because you're exactly what their soul has been avoiding and seeking. At the same time, sign 4. They feel like they've known you forever, even if it's the first time you've met. There's no logic to it, no explanation that makes sense. You've only just met, but they speak to you like an old friend, like someone they've trusted for years, like someone they forgot they had been missing. And sometimes they'll even say it out loud. It's so strange, I feel like I've known you forever. I don't usually connect this fast with anyone. You feel familiar. This isn't romantic chemistry. This isn't small talk that clicks. This is soul memory. Scorpio, your energy has walked through many lives. It carries the vibration of death and rebirth, not just in this lifetime, but in lifetimes before. So when someone meets you, and their soul has crossed paths with yours before in a story long erased from memory, they feel it instantly and completely. They may not remember the details, but they feel the pull, and that feeling is ancient. So, let me share a story from a Scorpio woman I once interviewed, an energy healer in Sedona, Arizona. She told me she met a man while traveling abroad for just 2 hours at an airport. They spoke briefly about music, about books. Nothing deep, nothing intense. But at the end, he turned to her and said, "I don't know who you are, but I think I loved you before, and I don't mean in this life." They never met again, but she still remembers his voice and the strange sacred silence that followed his words. That's what happens when souls recognize each other without the mind getting in the way. And this is especially true with Scorpio because your energy doesn't announce itself. It reminds people of something they thought they lost. You don't feel new, you feel eternal. This is why strangers tell you they feel seen, why people cry the first time they speak to you, why someone who barely knows you feels drawn to protect you or confess to you or simply stay. It's not about you, Scorpio. It's about what their soul remembers about you. You were there for them before in a time neither of you can place. And now here you are again, in a different body, but the same energy. And the moment they feel that, they know, even if they don't know why. Life lesson: when someone says they feel like they've known you forever, believe them, because energy never lies. And recognition isn't always of the face. Sometimes it's of the frequency. You are not new to this world, Scorpio. You are simply being remembered by those who once knew your light and are now ready to see it again. Sign 5. They feel emotionally exposed around you, even if you haven't said a word. You haven't asked them anything. You haven't pried, judged, or even shown the slightest hint of suspicion. And yet, they feel completely uncovered in your presence, naked. Not physically, but emotionally, spiritually. It's as if every defense they've spent years building, every mask they've carefully crafted begins to tremble in front of you. And it's not because you said something, it's because you didn't have to. Your energy does the talking. Your stillness does the revealing. Scorpio doesn't need to interrogate. Scorpio simply exists, and that alone is enough to bring truth to the surface. When someone's soul recognizes yours, especially as a Scorpio, it becomes alert. Not afraid, but hyper-aware, because it knows this person sees what I hide, this person might not say it, but they already know. And that knowing, it burns. Not because it's cruel, but because it's unavoidable. Let me tell you about a Scorpio therapist I once met in Chicago. Her clients would often come in and within 10 minutes begin crying, not from what she said, but from how she looked at them. One client even said, "It's like her silence undressed me. She didn't judge me, but she saw everything I was trying to cover." That is the Scorpio gift and the Scorpio burden. Because your presence doesn't allow for shallow conversation, it demands depth even in silence, and the soul responds to that demand. This is why people may act strange around you, Scorpio. They fidget, they look away. They suddenly get tired, anxious, or emotional without knowing why. Because your presence is not neutral, it activates what they haven't dealt with. It surfaces what they've suppressed. It exposes what they thought was safely hidden. and no part of them can remain untouched in your field. Here's what most people don't realize. Scorpio isn't trying to invade them. You're simply being, but your being shines a spotlight into the cracks and their soul knows it. This is why some people will avoid you even if they're drawn to you, why they feel shaken even if you've said nothing. It's not personal, it's energetic. And their soul on some level asked for it. Life lesson. Don't apologize for the way your presence reveals the truth. You are not here to entertain the surface. You are here to awaken what's underneath. And sometimes the greatest gift you offer others is not what you say, but what you allow them to finally feel, even if it makes them tremble, even if it sets them free. Sign 6. They dream about you even before you get close. It always starts the same way. Someone tells you, I had a dream about you the other night. It was strange, we weren't even close, but you were there. I don't know what it meant, but it felt real. Scorpio, this isn't just coincidence. This is spiritual resonance crossing into the dream world. Because when someone's soul recognizes yours, and they're not yet ready to confront it in waking life, their subconscious reaches out through dreams, and you show up. Not always as you, but as a guide, a shadow, a voice, a symbol, something that lingers long after they wake up. The dream might not even be romantic. In fact, it usually isn't. You might be walking silently beside them, or watching them from a distance, or standing at the edge of a door they're too afraid to open. Whatever the scene, one thing is always true. Your presence in their dream marks a shift. It stirs something, it unsettles something, it calls something forward. Let me tell you a story. A man in his 40s once met a Scorpio woman through a work project. They barely interacted, a few emails, a brief Zoom call. That was it. But a week later, he had a vivid dream. He was lost in a forest. Night had fallen, and just as panic took over, he saw her standing by a tree holding a lantern. Silent, still, glowing. She said nothing, but somehow her presence guided him out. He told her about it, embarrassed, unsure why he'd even mention it. But when he looked into her eyes, something inside him broke. He said, I don't know why, but I think I've known you before, and I think you've saved me before. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Because Scorpio doesn't speak when the soul already knows the answer. Scorpio's energy travels through space, through time, through dreams. It's not bound by physical proximity. It arrives where it's needed, often before the conscious mind is ready. That's why you show up in their sleep, because the dream is the only place they're open enough to receive your presence. And when they wake, they can't shake it. They feel changed, unsettled, drawn, not to your face, not to your words, but to something in you they cannot explain. Because the soul doesn't need logic, it only needs remembrance. Life lesson. Don't doubt the impact you have just by existing. Your energy reaches farther than you know, into people's fears, into their longing, into their dreams. You don't have to chase connection. When the soul is ready, it will dream of you. Because some truths are so deep, they arrive only when the mind is asleep. Sign 7, they feel emotionally changed after just one conversation with you. You didn't try to fix them. You didn't give them advice. You might not have said much at all, but after just one conversation with you, they walk away feeling different, lighter, heavier, awake, uncomfortable, but alive in a way they didn't expect. It's as if something inside them has shifted, and they can't explain why. Scorpio, your energy doesn't just speak, it penetrates. It moves past the layers, past the stories, past the I'm fine that most people hide behind. You ask one question, you offer one moment of silence, you hold one steady gaze, and suddenly, they're confronting things they've avoided for years. Not because you made them, but because your presence gave them permission. Permission to feel, to break, to see what they've buried. And maybe to let go of it. Let me share a real example. A Scorpio man, quiet, calm, deeply private, met a woman at a mutual friend's gathering. They talked for no more than 30 minutes. Years later, she found him on social media just to say this. "You probably don't remember me, but that conversation we had changed something in me. I left that night and cried in my car for an hour. Not because I was sad, but because something opened. I'd been numb for so long, and you reminded me I could feel again." She ended with, "Thank you for saying almost nothing and showing me everything." Scorpio didn't try to be powerful in that moment. He just was. And that was enough. This is what happens when someone's soul recognizes your frequency. They don't just hear you, they absorb you. Your energy becomes a mirror, a map, a fire. It lights something. It softens something. It breaks something open and then walks away silently as if nothing ever happened. But they remember because they are not the same. Not after that moment, not after you. But life lesson, you were never meant to have surface level conversations. You were built for soul contact. And that's why people feel shaken or transformed after talking with you. They don't remember your words. They remember what their own soul remembered in your presence. And that kind of impact doesn't need explanation. It needs honoring. Sign 8. They try to resist you, but something keeps pulling them back. They don't want to think about you. They try to move on. They tell themselves, "It wasn't that deep. I barely knew them. There's no reason to feel this much." But no matter how far they go, no matter how much time passes, they come back. Sometimes in body, sometimes in thought, sometimes in dreams, because something in them won't let go. Something in them knows you were not just a moment, you were a mirror. So, Scorpio, your energy doesn't leave quietly. It echoes. It haunts, not like a ghost, but like a truth that refuses to be buried. You may not chase anyone, you may not reach out, but your silence has weight, and that weight becomes a presence they carry with them everywhere they go. They may avoid you in the physical, but spiritually, they're orbiting around you, afraid to come close, unable to stay away. Let me tell you a story I heard from a Scorpio woman in Oregon. She was in a situationship with someone who ghosted her without a word. Months went by. She healed. She moved on. Then one day she received a letter. Handwritten. No return address. No name. Just this. "You made me feel things I wasn't ready to feel, and I thought if I walked away it would fade, but it didn't. Your presence still moves through me. I've tried to forget, but my soul keeps bringing you back." That's not about romance, that's about energetic imprint. People will try to rationalize why they're drawn to you. They'll look for evidence, a reason, a fault, a flaw, something to break the spell. But with Scorpio, there is no spell, only soul memory. You remind them of what's unhealed, what's unspoken, what's powerful, and their soul, whether ready or not, wants more of it. That's why they come back. That's why they reach out at odd hours. That's why they think of you when they're alone. That's why your name keeps appearing in songs, signs, memories. Not because you cast magic, but because your existence is magnetic. And that pull is never one-sided. Life lesson. You don't need to chase those who leave. If the soul was meant to walk beside you, it will return. And if it resists, it will still carry your fingerprint through lifetimes. You were never just a chapter in someone's story. You were the awakening they didn't see coming. And no one forgets the moment their soul opened, even if their mind tries to close the door behind it. Sign 9. They begin to change just by being around you. They don't notice it at first, but after a while, they start acting differently. Their words become more intentional. Their silence feels heavier. They begin asking themselves deeper questions. They start seeing the world and themselves with more honesty, more depth, more discomfort. And they don't know why, but you do. Because Scorpio energy doesn't just inspire transformation, it activates it, not with speeches, not with motivation, but with presence. Simply being near you starts to awaken something in them that had been asleep for too long. Scorpio, you are ruled by Pluto, the planet of death, rebirth, and irreversible change. So when someone's soul recognizes yours, it instinctively begins to shed its false layers. It wants to evolve, even if the conscious mind resists, even if it's uncomfortable. Because the soul doesn't seek safety, it seeks truth. And your energy feels like an invitation to step into truth, no matter the cost. Let me tell you a story from a Scorpio man who worked in a corporate office. He had a co-worker, quiet, reserved, guarded. They never had a deep friendship, but she once told him in passing, "When you're around, I feel like I can't lie to myself, like I suddenly want to be better, even if it hurts." Months later, she quit her job, started therapy, and said something he never forgot. "I don't know why I changed, but it started when I met you." She never said thank you. She didn't need to, because the change wasn't about him. It was about what her soul recognized in him and what it awakened in her. When you're a Scorpio, you carry initiation energy. You are the threshold between the old self and the new. And for many people, being around you is the beginning of a chapter they didn't even know they needed. Some will embrace it, some will resist, but none will remain the same. Not after you. They might start journaling, they might walk away from toxic people, they might cry for no reason, they might begin meditating, asking questions, listening to that quiet voice they always silenced. Because something in them shifted, not because you tried to change them, but because your presence reminded them that change is possible and necessary. Life lesson. You are not just a person, you are a catalyst. Don't downplay that. The people who cross your path were not sent to be entertained, they were sent to be awakened. And even if they walk away confused, angry, or silent, their soul knows the truth. You were the turning point. Sign 10. They come back even after trying to forget you. They distanced themselves. They stopped replying. They told themselves it wasn't that deep, that they were imagining things, that you were just another chapter, nothing more. But months later, maybe years, they return. Not always with an apology, sometimes not even with words, but they return. Through a text, a glance, a comment on a post, a whisper in a dream. Because no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't unfeel what they felt with you. Scorpio, your energy leaves a mark, not on the body, not on the memory, but on the soul. And once that mark is there, nothing, not time, distance, distraction, or denial can erase it. You weren't a moment, you were a mirror. And once someone's soul has looked into that mirror, they're never truly free from what they saw, even if they weren't ready to face it at the time. I once spoke with a Scorpio woman who said, "I've had people ghost me completely, and then show up years later out of nowhere just to say, 'You were right, I just wasn't ready.'" That's the pattern. They pull away when the truth gets too loud. They run when their own reflection becomes too clear. They seek comfort in places that don't challenge them. But comfort doesn't last, because the soul craves evolution, and eventually it leads them back to the one who lit the fire, you. They may not come back romantically, they may not even come back with full clarity, but their return is never really about you. It's about the unfinished work their soul began in your presence, the truth they touched when they were near you and couldn't find anywhere else. And so they return, because they remember the feeling of being real, and they miss it. A life lesson: let them go, Scorpio, and let them come back. But understand their return is not your validation. It is their soul surrendering to the truth they once resisted, the truth you never forced, but always embodied. You are not here to be chased, you are here to be recognized. And when the soul is ready, it will find its way back to the place it first woke up. You. Conclusion. You were never meant to be understood, only remembered. Scorpio, you were never made for shallow waters. You were born from the storm, shaped by silence, carved by fire, and sent here to awaken what sleeps in others. That's why you confuse them. That's why they stare too long and look away too quickly. Why they feel too much and try to feel nothing. Why they leave and then return. Because their soul knows what their mind cannot explain. You are not forgettable. You are recognizable. Not to the ego, not to the body, but to the part of them that remembers lifetimes, to the part of them that once sat beside you in a place beyond time, to the part of them that aches not for comfort, but for truth. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to prove your value, because real connection doesn't need convincing. When a soul recognizes yours, it doesn't ask questions, it simply reacts. With fear, with awe, with surrender, with silence, but always with truth. So the next time someone confesses something they've never said, dreams of you without reason, pulls away only to return again and again, remember this: it's not your charm, it's not your presence, it's your energy. It speaks to their soul long before you ever say a word. And that's your true power, Scorpio. Not to be loud, not to be liked, but to be felt. And once felt, never forgotten. Call to action. If this resonated with your soul, not just your mind, leave a comment below and share. Which of these 10 signs have you experienced? And if you're a Scorpio who's been wondering why people react so strongly to your energy, now you know they're not reacting to your face. They're reacting to your frequency. Subscribe to the Path to Buddha Wisdom for more deep truths about Scorpio soul energy and the unseen connections that guide your life. Because your power was never loud, it was sacred, and now it's being remembered.